That's what's
It's night and
up.
day.
That's what's up.
It's night and day. It's night and day, bro. I'm telling you. All right, cool, bro.
Okay.
All right, you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah.
You're good, bro. It doesn't have to be formal or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you do. You know, anything. Your hobbies.
Yeah.
Anything.
My name is Khaled Katana. I go by Kyle.
Yeah.
Originally from Palestine. Was born and raised in Kuwait because of the occupation that's been there for a long time.
Right.
I moved. I was essentially raised in Tucson from freshman year all the way to like 19, 20 years old. And then moved up in Phoenix for rehab around 25,
Right. Yeah.
approaching 26.
Nice.
Yeah, I work as an office manager. I do a couple of side projects as well. But that's just a little short version.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Nice. You want to tell us how it was like coming into the States and, you know, also like going into rehab and stuff like that? How was that like?
Yeah, those are two different but
Go
very,
ahead.
very, very impactful situations that had
Okay.
happened in my life. So
Yeah.
moving from the Middle East to here, my English was very much surface level.
Right.
They did teach English in Kuwait, so
Oh,
but so I knew the alphabets, I knew like animals, colors, certain things like that. But when I moved from Kuwait to the United States, I was extremely insecure about speaking in English because I didn't want to be looked at as different.
Right,
I
yeah.
already had a sense of feeling different and like I don't really like belong.
yeah.
So moving into a whole different culture was like it was terrifying
Right,
for me.
yeah.
So that was a big thing, and it was kind of hammered down by my dad every time I would speak in Arabic because I'm so used to it. I grew up with it. He would almost yell at me to tell me like no, speak in English, that way I can like learn the language.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I
so
see.
I'm actually better in English than I am in Arabic now.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Same here, bro. Same
yeah,
here.
yeah. So that was an experience, a culture shock for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
I had to adapt to that for sure. I remember being in my first period class. It was an English class. I remember a girl sitting right across from me, and she was like looking over quite frequently, and
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like, what do I do? Like, you know?
Yeah.
And she was cute, and I'm like, and I come from a culture where boys and girls were separated
Oh,
in school.
yeah, right.
So now it's a co-ed in that sense, and I got a really beautiful girl staring at me. So I'm like, what do I do with my hands? You know what I mean? How do I sit? Do I look back? Do I look away? You know, I didn't know. It was
Right.
like, you know, it was cool though.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so, how did that growing period look like for you, leading up to the point of you having to get help, right? Like, in drug-wise, right? Like, you obviously got into drugs and alcohol. Like, how did that look like leading up to that point?
So it was a lot of like isolation,
Yeah.
you know. Like I can put on a good show,
Yeah.
you know. So even
Yeah.
being the foreigner in school and being known as the foreigner in school,
Yeah.
it was quite obvious. And I would make some friends and I would mingle with a lot of the people like every now and then, but it was always just to get me by enough. That way, when you see me next time, you try to just like skim over me. I don't want you to be looking
Right.
at me too much because maybe, you know, it's an insecurity. Maybe you'll see that I'm pretending.
I
You know,
see.
maybe
Yeah.
you'll see that this is just a show that I'm putting on for you.
Right.
I just wanted to be normal enough that way you can just kind of skim over me. Oh, here he is, and then move on.
Yeah.
So whenever I successfully did that, and to the point where I can isolate in peace,
Right.
knowing that my reputation is not so bad out there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So a lot of the isolation, and then the home life was, um, like it was there, but also there was a lot of disconnection at the same time. There
Yeah.
was some fighting, there was some expectations. My dad worked all of the time,
Mm.
um, and my stepmother did her best to take care of four boys and one girl, and she
Right.
worked full time. My
Damn.
real mother wasn't, is still overseas.
Right. Right.
So like there wasn't much attention to like
Mm.
maybe my inner world and what's going on inside of me.
Right.
I
Right.
just kind of like went along with the flow of things. And I think eventually that caused like such a feeling of just like isolation inside
Mm.
myself, because I had to shut that part of myself eventually because it was hurting too much.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That whatever made me it gave me some sort of a jolt, whatever made me gave me some sort of a sensation, a feeling, a strong feeling,
Yeah.
I was attracted to, because it made me feel alive again, because everything else was kind of dull and numb,
Yeah.
you know.
100%.
And I would say that it's like the beginning progression of seeking um, external things to feel alive inside,
Right. Yep.
you know.
Yep. And dude, I love talking about that, and I talk about that all the time, right? And it's like now, even now, after getting all the help and even knowing that the solution is right, like in here,
Mm-hmm.
I still seek outward,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I love talking about that because it's such a strange thing that even though I know what the solution is,
Mm-hmm.
like I guess it's just my humanity.
Yeah.
It's just, you know.
Yeah. Yep. So it's kind of like I never learned how to address my needs,
Mm.
my
That's
universal human needs.
right, right, yeah.
They were neglected.
Mm.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily, it's not any kid's responsibility or child
Right, right.
to take care of it. Like a kid, when he cries for food, he's gonna cry for food. He's gonna need you to feed him until he can feed himself, and he
Yeah.
can be taught how. So there were certain things that were neglected in the emotional sense, and how to take care of my needs. So it wasn't taken care of. It wasn't addressed because everybody's so busy with their lives. So I grew up not knowing how to. Therefore, I found ways to manipulate others to
Mm.
get my needs and my demands for my needs met through
Right.
manipulation.
Mm.
And in the actor scenario, it talks about maybe you were kind, generous, self-sacrificing,
Right.
but it was because I wanted something from it. There was a need that I'm trying to meet, and I'm gonna do it through being kind and generous or whatever. Or on the other hand, I may be mean, egotistical. I'm gonna manipulate it through these traits in order to get my needs met.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's why I'm selfish and self-centered, because I don't know how to meet my own needs, so I'm going to demand it out of you, and how I'm going to do it in a clever way to manipulate it, and I'm unconscious about these things.
Yeah. Right.
I
Right.
feel like you got to meet my needs.
Mm.
And I'm unconscious about that, because what I'm unconscious about is that these needs got to be met by myself now. They're my responsibility, and I didn't know that.
Right. I
So
see.
of course I'm selfish and self-centered, because I have needs I can't address them myself. So I'm gonna see, how can I manipulate Carlos, or how can I manipulate John, or how can I manipulate X, Y, and Z to get these needs met?
Right.
Because
Right.
I don't believe that I can meet my own needs. I don't
Exactly.
believe that I'm good enough for that.
Yeah.
You know what I
Damn,
mean?
dude. That's so good, man. That's so good. Um, like I know, well, at least for me, like I know that you got, we're obviously in a 12-step program, right? And like I'm starting the new 12-step program, right? And like you've been in it, and I've seen all the changes that like has happened with you, as far as everything that you talk about, right? Like like how your people pleasing has become a little better, right? Like it's not as enhanced as it used to be, right? Like you're conscious of your emotions, you validate your emotions, right? Like and all this stuff, man, that is very attractive
Mm-hmm.
to a person like me, and to see it in somebody else, it was cool. So there's this quote the point of me bringing that up is that there's this quote that says the pain of staying the same
Mm.
is greater than the pain of change.
Mm.
That's when change happens,
Mm.
right? And so, how did that pain look like for you in sobriety, right? Like, what did you go through that hurt so much that forced you in a position to change, right?
Mm.
Emotionally, spiritually, right? Like all these things.
Yeah. So we just talked about how when my needs are not met, I manipulate others to have those needs met. So if you're
Right.
not acting like how I think you should be acting, I'm getting triggered.
Right.
You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And my biggest fear behind that is my needs not being met, therefore being alone,
mm.
right? Being lonely, being abandoned yet again
Right.
is the
That's it.
biggest fear. And there's so much pain in there because if that's my biggest fear, there's also a false belief behind that fear that I'm not good enough to be loved and be cared for.
I see.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that is one of the biggest pains because if that's the case, then I'm gonna live in this dark spot of being alone and not loved and my needs never being met. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So that's that pain for me gotten so great. Um, um, but like the pain is actually good.
I see.
The
Yeah.
pain was like the best thing that's ever happened to me. But the thing about it is I denied the pain for a really long time. And I appeased it and I soothed it with you meeting my needs,
Right.
with drugs, with validation, with X, Y, and Z. I always found a way to soothe it.
I see.
So I never,
Didn't sit with you.
no,
You didn't
never,
sit through it.
never,
Right. Yeah.
right? So it was too much. And it was so much so that I was in denial about the pain even being in existence. And
Yeah.
so much so that because my heart got broken so many times, and there was enough pain that was inflicted onto me that I learned every time I got hurt to put barriers on my heart.
Right.
That
Yeah.
way you can't hurt me again. I'm not really gonna let you in. It got so bad to the point that I have so many barriers on my heart from all angles that I don't have access to me. How can you have access to me when I don't have access to me?
Exactly.
That door is locked, the keys is thrown away.
Right. Right.
So like when I'm in a relationship and somebody expects me to be intimate with them, they're like, "What are you thinking? What are you feeling?" I really can't tell you because I don't have access to my own heart. That ship has sailed.
Right.
So much so that I don't even acknowledge the existence of this part of me anymore. It's all intellectual from there.
Right.
It's all intellectual. It's not with heart and feeling and sincerity.
Right. Right.
And but, I'm probably drifting
No,
off
you're
here.
good. Go ahead. Keep going.
But the pain is locked up inside the heart,
Yeah.
and I didn't have access to it anymore, right? And there's a part in the big book where it talks about how we indulge in windy arguments because of logic, right?
Yeah.
We're just strictly about like it's not logical to believe in God.
Right. Yeah.
Years in recovery, I'm thinking about it in that context about how people try to use logic to prove that God doesn't exist. I'm over here trying to use logic to prove that God does exist. It's the same shit on a different spectrum.
Right. I see.
It defeats the whole purpose because later on in that same page it says how reason has gotten us far but not far enough.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So therefore, God cannot be figured out just with this. It's fragmented. You need access to this to fully experience it. So it can't be intellectually explained. Therefore, if I don't have access to my heart, I don't have access to God either.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had to face the pain in order to get access, and there was no way for me to do that without those barriers being
Okay.
destroyed, and the only way that had happened was through a heartbreak.
Okay.
And so I went through the one of the biggest heartbreaks of my whole entire life, and that was what broke the barrier. It broke my heart wide open.
Right. Yeah.
The pain seeped out,
And there was
and there's the pain, right? And I wanted to run away and barricade it again, but I was sober enough, right, to see that that was a form of God's grace
I see.
for me. The
Right.
heartbreak is God's grace.
I
It
see.
was Him being like, boom.
Yeah.
Here, I opened your heart for you. Are you gonna shut it again, or are you gonna keep it open this time? And I'm like, but it fucking hurts. He's like,
Right.
good, let it,
Mm.
and watch your transformation happen.
Right.
And I just on my knees crying
Mm.
for days,
Man.
weeks,
Yeah.
months, still to today sometimes.
Mm.
But I love it now though.
Yeah.
It's not like in the beginning where it was so painful.
Right.
But God's grace came in and it fucking shattered those barriers wide open, and it gave me access to my heart again. Therefore, it gave me access to Him.
Man, that is so good, man. Because, like, yeah, it's. How did that transformation look like? Like, what are the steps that you took? What is the routines that look like through that pain? Right? Like, what is it that you did through that pain, man? That allowed you to start healing again.
Sitting with it, not in it.
I see.
You know, sitting with it, just like acknowledging its existence,
Okay.
not judging it. You know,
Right.
recognizing that, hey, this is sadness. And I used to label it with judgments, as in like this feeling of sadness is me not being good enough. But that's not the truth. That's me judging my feeling. What it
Right,
is
yeah.
just sadness. So like unconsciously, I knew that like I had to sit with it. So I allowed myself to sit with the sadness, and I would cry. And every time it would get overwhelming, I would get anxious. I would feel like you're ignoring me or not meeting my needs. I would sit with myself, and I'd have to like reassure myself that it's okay, you know.
Right.
And then a lot of journaling, breathing, just remembering to breathe in
Yeah,
these
right,
situations kind of brings me back to like a conscious presence,
Right.
to see that the emotion is happening, and it's pretty intense, and there's a message behind the emotion. So if I don't judge it, I'll actually hear the message. Therefore, next time I won't be triggered as much. It'll slowly like dial down,
Right.
you know. So it looked like a lot of that, a lot of solidarity, not isolation,
Yeah.
but solidarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Hans was talking to me about that
Yeah.
yesterday. Yeah. He was talking about how it's a lonely road. You know, the road of growth. Basically, you know, there's a lot of people that, not a lot of people, but you have more, not judgment, you have more discernment.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And
I
so
love that word.
Yeah, you look out
Yeah.
for yourself a lot more, and you protect your energy and who you project it towards, right?
Yeah.
You talked a lot about God, man, and you opening that channel, right, with God, and so how, and I understand that our relationships with God change. At least for me, it has changed throughout the years.
Yeah.
Right. It sometimes looks like a toxic relationship. Not gonna lie, right? On my end, it sometimes blossoms after I go through a rough period or a painful experience. And so, how has your relationship with God looked like throughout up until now, basically? You know.
Yeah.
What was it? Or I mean, just overall, how was it? How has it been? You know.
Once I started having access to my heart,
Yeah.
like, you know, when I say heart, I don't mean like the physical, but rather something much deeper inside, you know, like the vulnerability of being open, right? I have my relationship with God started to become real.
Yeah, I see.
You know, it was different at that point, and something happened inside. Something extremely like powerful. Like I felt what love and compassion is. Like I felt it. Like I felt it.
Right.
You know, and it's so hard to explain. You know, but that experience, how it transformed my relationship with my higher power, is that it showed me that he wants to love. You know, and he does love everybody. And he showed me through that relationship how I can love everybody. And he showed me that through showing me that we're all the same.
Right.
And all my pains are everybody else's pains. And all my pleasures and happiness and joy is also everybody else's. But I'm able to relate with you mostly through the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in my darkest, most painful moment in pain, and I did not barricade it and shut it, and I allowed it to stay open, I felt my deepest pains, and in return he showed me how you feel too.
I see.
So next time I want to hate you, next time I
Yeah.
want to block you, next time I want to judge you, uh, I recall my pain and I feel your pain through it.
Right.
And that's my relationship with God today, is that like he shows me that he loves me and he wants me to love everybody like he loves me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like that.
Right.
You know, and to be able to love is a strength.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like
Oh,
it's not like oh, it's a cozy
yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of
right,
like,
right,
you know,
yeah.
happy feeling like that comes with it after the strength of loving somebody is demonstrated.
Right.
You see its true power, you know, but it takes immense strength to love somebody.
Mm. Mm. I see. That's interesting, man. I haven't heard that one
Mm-hmm.
before, man, and I don't really even know where to take it from here, man. How does your routine with enlarging that relation? How does it look like for you?
It goes up and down,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know. I feel like I was on fire for a really long time, and then
Yeah.
I like slow down, you know, and
Right.
I get distracted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I start to seek out other things that like kind of dial down its strength and how vibrant it can be at times.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's I feel like I've had such unforgettable experience through the pain that like in the background it's always that channel and that piece is always there for me, even if I
Mhm.
decide to drift off for a little bit, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And my relationship with God today is transformed, to answer your previous question, to the point where if I do drift off, I know I can always come back, not to a
Yeah.
punishing God, to a God that wants me to be in his grace,
Right. Yeah.
you know. So it's easier for me to come back to him, you know.
Yeah.
So how my routine looks like to continue to enlarge, I'm a fallible human being, dude.
Yeah.
You know, it looks good sometimes and sometimes not so good.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes not so good. But the love that I feel for him and he feels for me, like, is there. You know,
Right.
so it
Yeah.
allows me to recenter a lot easier now.
Mm.
You know.
Right. Right. That's awesome, man. What is what's one of the most impactful books that you've read?
The Myth of Normal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
I
Myth
haven't
of
even opened that one yet.
Gabor
Not yet.
Mate. It was perfect in the timing in my life.
Okay, yeah. And this one, what? How long ago did you read it again?
Like
Was
a
it last?
year, a
A year
year
ago?
ago.
Okay.
Yeah, a year ago. It was the most impactful book for me because it was right when the brokenness of the heart, the barriers were like broken, just like
Right.
not
Yeah.
that long ago, and it was like open, and it was a perfect way to use my time to understand what's going on with me, you know.
Right.
It provided clarity, it provided explanation, it provided a view of trauma, culture, from the individual to the culture, you know what I mean, and how
Right.
it's all interconnected. And then it also provides you with the path to self compassionate inquiry,
Ah, yeah.
you know, is what he calls in his
Right.
book, compassionate inquiry. That means when I have these troubling feelings, I don't judge them and shut them out. I compassionately inquire within myself about
Right.
that feeling and then listen and wait to receive. You
Oh,
know, so like
yeah.
it guides and it
Right.
explains a lot of the emotional sobriety that I need in my life today.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so that was a very impactful book for me.
Yeah.
Another one was a one that you gave me, actually, New Earth by Eckhart
Nah,
Tolle.
I love that one,
Oh,
bro.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good book for me too.
Yeah, I love that one. That one was the one that really woke me up,
Yeah,
quote unquote. You know,
yeah,
like it made me aware
yep,
of my the subconscious
yeah,
mind.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and like after I learned that, bro, it's a complete game changer.
yeah.
You know, because I'm able to distinguish what my ego's thoughts are and then
Hmm.
what my thoughts are. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and it's such an awesome thing.
It
Yeah.
is, dude. It
Yeah.
is. And it's interesting that you bring up the ego too. I have a completely different look on like my ego today.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you wanna.
Yeah. I don't even I used to like hate my ego. It used to be like somebody that like I didn't. You
Interesting.
know, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. That was the ego speaking about the ego.
Yeah. I'm kind of right there right
Yeah,
now. You know,
yeah.
I have that mindset where it's like, ah, I hate my ego.
Yeah,
You know, or it's
that's
a bad thing,
that's
right?
yeah, exactly. That's part of how the ego operates.
Yeah.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? It
Yeah.
wants to be in control of everything.
Mhm.
But like the ego is essentially the false self,
Mhm.
right? And it's the self that was created as a result of not getting your universal needs as a human met. So it creates these things to be seen a certain way in
Exactly.
order
Yeah.
for you to manipulate to have the person meet your needs or the place to meet your needs.
Right. Right.
And as a result, we create a persona, and the persona is our ego.
Yeah.
At some point, that persona saved my life in a
Mhm.
sense of like my needs being met.
Right.
Do you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it worked so well that this is what I attached myself to
Mhm.
because it got me through really tough situations. And now the detachment of that needs to happen, and I need to go to my true self,
Mhm.
not my false self that was created to
Right. Yeah.
survive.
Yeah.
So I see it as a soldier that had gone to war that did its part, but it's not required anymore.
Mhm.
We've made it. We're safe. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Right. Right.
and it's still gonna be with me. You know, I
Uh-huh.
won't reject it. It's gonna crop up sometimes, and the more conscious and the more aware I am of it, I don't have to act up on it. I can just listen to it and
Right.
tell it that, hey, we're not gonna handle it like this time.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna allow it to be.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we're gonna take a different direction. It just requires consciousness. It just wants to protect me,
Right.
because
Right.
it's like, what if my needs are not met? What if that person thinks of me this way?
Mhm.
What if they see me in this light? What if I
Exactly.
don't get that? That's the ego,
Yeah.
right? It's trying to have my needs met, and it's like, hey, I'm learning how to meet my own needs now, so we don't need to demand that out of somebody
Right. Right.
anymore
Yeah.
in that kind of way. We can do it in a healthy way,
Yeah.
you know? And that's where I started to lose the ego in the sense of I need to put on a show for you to like me.
Exactly. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So it's not an enemy.
Right.
Really, if anything, it got me as far as I needed to go.
Mhm.
But if I allow it to, it'll run my life if I'm not conscious.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah. Man, it's such a crazy thing, man. We can go down a rabbit hole, really.
Yeah.
But like, you know, all the greatest teachers, not teachers, but I guess all the, you know, all these great authors, they talk about it in the
Mm.
same sense, sort of, you
Mm.
know, about the ego and about awakening and all that stuff, and it just makes you, you know, it's just it's cool. It's very comforting to just be aware of that lesson, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't ever learn that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I'm grateful to have learned it. What is something, you know, us being in the rooms and all, but you know, we're constantly hearing all these things, or we're constantly learning, right? We're constantly like reading, trying to grow as people. What is something that has been sticking around with you lately, whether it be like a quote or something that somebody had said to you that really just stuck with you and made you think? And like, for example, for me lately, like the past couple of weeks, I've been doing my morning meditation. I've been reading like the daily reflection, and one of them said, what did it say? It said the way I thank God is by appreciating the moment. You know, and it just
Mm,
that one was like I just kind of sat back in my couch and started meditating on that because I started noticing it was just one of those like you hear it and you're like, oh shit, you know.
mm-hmm.
So what is something that you've heard recently that's had an impact on you, or something that you've read or learned, heard on a podcast, whatever?
Yeah. I would say the most recent
Yeah.
inspiration that I've gotten is now as I go to do like my prayer,
Mhm.
I don't have so many words to say anymore. It feels like
Ah.
there's something happening inside. There's a change,
Right.
and I think it's because of my understanding of what prayer is starting to evolve.
Mhm.
I used to pray for God to allow me to be fully authentic, who I am,
Right. Yeah.
right? And I've been able to do that.
Mhm.
And then as I drift off a little bit and don't stay as focused, it becomes more of a struggle to be authentic.
Mhm.
And I've I've caught myself in a prayer where it's like, okay, so I'm not gonna pray for God to allow me to be authentic. He already gave me that. What I need to pray for is the courage to not fall into conformity,
Mhm.
the courage to, even when me being authentic goes against the status quo, the courage to still remain to be authentic.
Mhm.
So, like, you know what I mean? Something
Right.
that's been
Right.
sticking with me, it's like, okay, it's already here for me. Are
Right.
you gonna
Yeah.
have the ability and the strength
Right.
to
Yeah.
carry that on? So, something that's kind of been inspiring me is like the way that I pray about situations. It's like, if you want it, it's here, but here's what's required to get it done. So I'm
Right.
not gonna pray for the result anymore. I'm gonna pray for the ability, the work that needs to be done. So,
Mhm.
like, you hear a lot about how, oh, I pray for strength, God gives me challenges. I pray for,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, patience, God gives me something to be patient about.
Right.
God, you know, all of that stuff, and it's kind of like it's starting to click now,
I see.
in a
Yeah.
sense of like, oh, I'm praying for authenticity, but you know, oftentimes when I'm not authentic, it's because I want to conform to the status quo.
Mhm.
You know,
I see.
and I deny myself my authentic response because I want to fit in.
Right. Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
I know
that's,
exactly.
yeah, that's something that's been like on my heart.
Right.
It's like, okay, now we gotta we gotta make help create that environment in order to get that result.
Mhm.
You know?
Man, dude, that is. I've had a similar experience as well, and this was just recently as well, where it was something similar to that, and it's right. Like I was constantly praying for the willingness to trust God,
Yeah.
and it's like, why am I praying for the willingness to trust God? God has already granted me
Mm.
the ability to trust Him.
Mm.
So it's like it's kind of this loop that I'm playing, and it's like I just need to do it, right? Like He's already given me the ability to trust Him, but there's something within me that is right is not accepting the situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just want to tell other people, oh yeah, I've been praying for the willingness to trust God, right? But He's already granted me that ability to
Mm-hmm.
trust Him, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of quotes, I
Yeah.
just heard this the other day. Scrolling. You know, it's like, what you don't change, you choose. I don't
Right.
know who it's by, but it's an amazing quote. I think it's extremely powerful, very impactful. What you don't change, you choose.
Or you don't change, you
So
choose.
whatever reoccurs in your life that you complain about or that you
Right.
talk about, and it keeps happening in patterns, if it continues to happen, that means you're choosing it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, because what are you doing to stop that or move away from that? Not
Right.
putting yourself in there again. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome, dude. All right, man. Well, yeah. I mean, what? I guess for the last question, we'll try to end it right here, man. Is or something that's been on your heart, something that's been on your mind? Like, what is a message that you want to give to other people, you know? If you even have one.
Just I guess learn how to love yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. Sometimes I do think I do love myself, but,
Yeah.
you know, the stuff I do to myself tells me otherwise, though. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell myself, sometimes I love myself a lot, but
Yeah.
sometimes I do the complete opposite, you know?
It's kind of like it takes strength to love.
Yeah,
Something. Yeah.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
love is something I can't necessarily define.
Right,
It's such a like broad thing, but it's not what I thought that it was before.
right,
You know.
yeah.
So.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a new one. I
Mhm.
haven't heard that one before, so
Mhm.
that's good. But thank you, man. I appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah.
Seriously,
It's my
man. You
pleasure.
know, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome, dude.
That's good, bro.